Brazilians in 57 municipalities head back to polling stations in mayoral runoff elections. UN Refugee Agency needs $150 million for Ethiopian refugees. And protests against Israeli annexation plans in the occupied West Bank as world marks Palestinian Solidarity Day. Hello and welcome to teleSUR. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the South. Brazilians are heading to the polls for the second round of municipal elections this Sunday. Voters will cast their ballots in the runoff mayoral and city council races in 57 municipalities. In the country's two largest cities, Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, the mayoral races remain undecided according to polls. This is the first election since President Jair Bolsonaro was voted into office in 2018 and the last poll before he runs for re-election in 2022. For more details, let's turn to our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Brad Mayer.
I'm standing in front of a polling station in a working-class neighborhood on São Paulo's north side, where, as in 56 other of the nation's largest cities in Brazil today, people are coming out to vote for candidates for mayor in the second round of the mayoral elections. Now, here in São Paulo, Socialism and Liberty candidate Guilherme Boulos is neck and neck with center-right incumbent Bruno Covas. In Rio de Janeiro, the candidate supported by Jair Bolsonaro, Marcelo Crivella, is trailing horribly in the polls after he tried to ban Carnival this year. He's an evangelical preacher. Another race to watch today is in Porto Alegre, where communist candidate Manuela Dávila is leading slightly in the polls after a very ugly campaign with rampant sexism and electoral fraud. If she wins today, it'll be the first time that the left has taken back this historic center of leftist activism since 2002. So in all, it looks like today is going to be a day of moderate gains for the left, with leftist candidates running in 18 of the nation's largest cities, bigger gains for the center-right, but huge losses for far-right President Jair Bolsonaro.
Brian Mayer bringing us that report. Staying in Brazil, President Jair Bolsonaro says he will not take any coronavirus vaccine, even if it is approved by his own government.
I won't take it. It's my right. I'm sure that Parliament will not make it difficult for anyone who doesn't want to take the vaccine. Anyone who doesn't take the vaccine, if it is effective, lasting and reliable, is only harming themselves. And whoever takes the vaccine will not be infected, so you don't have to worry.
The Supreme Federal Court of Brazil has extended the time period for the investigation against President Bolsonaro by another 60 days. Bolsonaro is accused of political interference in the federal police in order to control investigations that affect his family. The president has asked the court to suspend the probe and has refused to testify. In other news, Mexico's Senate has approved a constitutional reform that seeks to eliminate presidential immunity. The bill was approved with 89 votes in favor and 23 against. However, it requires approval by a majority of state legislatures. Under Mexico's existing constitution, serving presidents can only be tried for treason and certain other serious crimes, while corruption allegations are excluded. The proposal was spearheaded by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who says presidential immunity has fueled corruption. Staying in Latin America, Guatemala, protesters have returned to the streets for a second week in a row to demand the resignation of President Alejandro Giammattei. More than 2,000 people gathered in the Central Plaza in the capital, Guatemala City, to call for the resignation of Congress members, despite them backtracking on the 2021 budget earlier this week. Last week, protesters burned several offices inside the Congress building, rejecting the approval of a $12.8 billion budget. People were outraged that while the budget approved $65,000 for meals for Congress members, it cut funding for human rights agencies, healthcare, education, and the judiciary.
We believe it is important that citizens can speak out, that they can take to the streets, that they can demand the resignation of all these people, because only in this way we can generate important changes.
People are upset and outraged by a government that does absolutely nothing for anyone. So people are fed up, and this is a sign that the people are tired.
On Saturday night, protesters clashed with police and also set a bus on fire in the capital. Angry demonstrators said that the economic measures implemented by the government have only led to growing inequalities and favor the private sector over the public sector investments. Following the unrest, President Giammattei announced his government will begin a dialogue with the business community to come up with an alternative budget proposal. We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. Ethiopian forces took control of Mekele, the capital of the defined Tigray region, on Saturday afternoon, hours after the military launched the final push to retake the city from the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF. The Ethiopian Defense Force has completely controlled Mekele, Army Chief General Birhanu Jula was quoted as saying by the Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation. Shortly before the Army Chief's statement, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed told journalists that government soldiers had been able to enter Mekele without any civilian casualties. Abiy ordered a military offensive against the TPLF on November 4th after the group attacked a federal military base, killing dozens of soldiers.
We plan how to take control of Mekele without any damage, and this afternoon we control Mekele fully. We are looking for anti-peace forces hiding in every nook and cranny. We freed more than 7,000 North Division soldiers. We control our North Division camp and all tanks and heavy weapons.
Well, the head of the UN Refugee Agency, Filippo Grandi, has said Sudan needs $150 million in aid to cope with the flood of Ethiopian refugees crossing its border from conflict-stricken Tigray. He said this during a visit to a refugee camp in the eastern Jedaref province. He appealed to donors to come to the refugees' aid as soon as they can. Sudan is currently hosting more than 40,000 Ethiopian refugees in various camps located across the country.
500 people per day. This is what we got in the last few days. 600 refugees coming into the country per day. In rich countries, this would bring governments down. And here, the government of Sudan has kept the border open. UNHCR and the UN and humanitarian community needs about $150 million for the next 6 months to help the government of Sudan manage this refugee crisis. We are worried about the situation in Tigray, very worried. I want to join the Secretary General of the UN, the African Union, and all those that have called for mediation to result very quickly in the end of this conflict and in the restoration of peace. And I am specifically worried, as UN High Commissioner for Refugees, about the situation of almost 100,000 Eritrean refugees that have been hosted in Tigray, in Ethiopia.
At least 43 farm workers were killed on Saturday after Boko Haram fighters attacked a farming community near Nigeria's Maiduguri city. 8 others are reported to be missing and are suspected to have been kidnapped. The farm workers were tied up and had their throats slit with machetes. Boko Haram has been targeting farmers in this area, accusing them of spying and passing information to the military and the local militia fighting against them. Mauritania on Saturday celebrated its 60th independence anniversary. The commemorative festivities were marked by a military parade in Nouakchott, the capital, and an announcement by the Mauritanian president of sharp increases in pensions and salaries in the health and education sector.
It is a proud day for us because it marks the recovery of our freedom. It is a beautiful day that we are happy to celebrate every year.
I pay here a deserved tribute and express deep appreciation to the heroes of our valiant resistance for the valiant acts of bravery and sacrifice, at the price of their blood, to defend the homeland in the name of its freedom and dignity.
Floods caused by heavy rains have killed at least 3 people on Italy's Sardinia island. Heavy rains accompanied by strong winds have swept through the island since Friday, destroying infrastructure and disrupting power supply. Authorities have evacuated hundreds of people from flood-prone areas. In other news, Dave Prowse, the actor who played Darth Vader in the original Star Wars trilogy, has died at the age of 85. A former bodybuilder turned actor, Prowse's towering stature at almost 2 meters clinched him the role of the infamous antagonist in the original Star Wars trilogy. Director George Lucas saw Prowse in a small part in A Clockwork Orange and asked him to audition for the villainous Vader or the Wookiee Chewbacca in Star Wars. Physically, Prowse was perfect for the part, but his Western English accent was considered less ideal, and his lines were dubbed by James Earl Jones. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab on Sunday defended strict new coronavirus restrictions in England, but said these could be eased in areas where rates of infection continue to fall.
Reality is we want to come out of national lockdown and stay out of it. There is hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel with the prospect, subject to regulatory approval, of the vaccine being ready to be in place and distributed by the spring, which will allow a real step change back to life resembling normal. The 2 things we need between now and then are this tiered approach so that we can target the virus where it's the most dangerous. We are starting with a more restrictive approach than previously with a localized approach, but that allows us to ease up when we're confident the virus is going down and is stabilised. There's a review every 2 weeks. The second thing is just the testing. And what we've seen, we've had 12 million people tested, and we've seen in Liverpool with the community-wide testing at scale done more quickly, that really helps us bear down the virus. Those 2 things are the crucial bridge to that light at the end of the tunnel in the spring.
Thousands of Spanish citizens have demonstrated in Madrid against the insufficient funding of the public health system. Protesters say that the regional authorities have not made enough investment in the system, leading to a crisis worsened by the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak. As the demonstration marched down Madrid's Central Avenue, protesters shouted that public health should be defended, not sold off. The organizers also delivered a manifesto to the Madrid regional authorities demanding an end to the privatization of the health system.
The most important thing for me is that the public health system is improved with more professionals per inhabitant. They know this. This needs to happen in the primary health care centers. It is fundamental that this area is improved so that people don't have to go to hospitals.
We have more stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Lawmakers chanted "Death to America" and "Death to Israel" in the Iranian parliament this Sunday following the killing of the country's nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh near Tehran on Friday. Footage from Iranian state TV shows Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bakir Ghalibaf leading the chants, pledging a strong reaction against the criminal enemy. Fakhrizadeh was killed on Friday in a targeted attack by gunmen using explosives and machine guns.
The criminal enemy will not be made regretful unless with a strong reaction that will both create deterrence ahead of the enemy's possible mistakes in the future and get revenge on them over these crimes.
Earlier, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani accused Israel of assassinating Fakhrizadeh in order to create chaos in the Middle East. Rouhani also vowed that Tehran will avenge Fakhrizadeh's killing.
This barbaric assassination shows that our enemies are in stressful weeks, during which they feel their pressure declining, the global situation changing. These few weeks are important to them, so that they make the maximum use of them, so that they can create an uncertain situation in the region. Iran's enemies should know that the people of Iran and officials are braver than to leave this criminal act unanswered. In due time, they will answer for this crime.
Now today, the world is commemorating the Palestinian Solidarity Day, the day which the United Nations General Assembly has marked since 1978, falls on November 29th, the same day that the UN adopted Resolution 181, the partition plan for Palestine in 1947. On this day, the world extends solidarity to the Palestinian people and magnifies calls for an independent Palestinian state. To mark the day, members of the Fatah movement and Palestine Liberation Organization gathered to protest against Israeli annexation plans in the occupied southern West Bank.
Today marks the convening of the Israeli court based on a lawsuit from the settlers to force the Israeli government to remove the site Khan al-Amar. We are here today on the occasion of the Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, and we came here to support our Palestinian people from the Abu Dahak family who are here.
As messages of solidarity with Palestine continue pouring in from different parts of the world, the South African opposition party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, also sent a message urging countries to continue supporting Palestine in its quest for freedom from the Israeli occupation. The world's loneliest elephant has embarked on a move from Pakistan to retirement in a Cambodian sanctuary. Kavan was the only Asian elephant in Pakistan, and the woeful conditions at the zoo where he had lived resulted in a judge this year ordering all the animals to be moved. A team of vets and experts from Four Paws have spent months working with Kavan to get him ready for the trip to Cambodia, which has included training the elephant to enter the massive metal transport crate that will be placed in a cargo plane for the 7-hour flight. Officials said Kavan will initially be kept in a small designated section of the park in Cambodia, where he can see other elephants.
That Kavan is all set for his journey to Cambodia. We've already got in touch with the sanctuary in Cambodia. They have sent us some pictures about his new abode, and in Pakistan we would all like to wish him well for his new journey, and we would like to say that although we are very sad to see him go, we think it is the right decision to let him go at this stage.
Over to Australia, cliffs featuring thousands of years old Indigenous paintings have been opened to the public. Paintings and etchings of megafauna, Emu symbols and the Indigenous Seven Sisters story cover the towering cliffs in Turabura in remote western Queensland. The 200 meters long cliff is filled with tens of thousands of engravings of paintings and petroglyphs and was returned to the local Iningai people in 2019. They've been restoring the former grazing land and are now opening it to visitors as a place of learning.
It goes for about 200 meters long, and it is filled with tens of thousands of engravings, of paintings and petroglyphs. So the wall houses what we call is the university teaching wall of our songline.
With that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media for TeleSUR English. I am Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.